Hi, my name's Joe. I'm here with Hi-Fi Corner, and today I'm here with Jason from Naim Audio. We're going to be talking about the new Classic 200 series. Before that, I'd just like to thank our sponsor, Naim Audio. Hi-Fi Corner has a full selection of Naim electronics available for in-store demonstration or at-home demonstration. We also have one of the biggest ranges available of Naim items in stock and ready for next day delivery. Contact us for more information. Jason, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Sure. So I've been at Naim Audio for 22 years, and my job description title is Brand Ambassador, which basically means I encompass training for the UK-based UK retailers, typically, presentations, and hopefully you'll find interesting presentations such as this today.
Thanks for the introduction, Jason. Talk to us. So this is the new Classic 200 series. I gotta say, some of my favorite kit that Naim's put out as of late. I love it. I love the sound of it. I love the functionality of it. It's one of those things that kind of just all of a sudden when we turned it on, I was just like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's where it's at.
Yes.
But if you could do us a favor and talk us through, so we got the preamp, we have the power supply for the preamp, and we have the power amp. If you can go through the names of them and describe what's happening with them, and then we can talk about a little bit later of what this kind of has replaced, how we can do some upgrades, so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so top of the pile here we have the NSC 222 streaming preamplifier. NSC stands for Naim Streaming Control. It's a streamer with preamp. There's your control. It allows you to do things.
Okay.
It's actually our first high-end analog preamplifier with streaming built in. We used to do a product called NAC 272, which was a relatively sophisticated streaming preamp, but was largely a streaming preamp, which was largely a DAC streamer with a volume control. This actually is a very high-quality analog preamp where we've actually encompassed a high-end moving magnet phono stage, which is easily as good as, if not slightly better, than what's supplied in the Super NAC 3, which most people have fallen in love with over the last 2 or 3 years.
So the phono stage is better than the one that we would find in, say, the Super NAC 3.
Absolutely, yeah. It's moving magnet only because it does have an internal power supply. Anyone that's into hi-fi understands that a toroidal transformer gives off lots of electromagnetic fields, and if you've got a very low moving coil signal, it will pick up hum.
It's going to pick it up.
Moving magnet is absolutely fine.
Right, so, okay. Yeah. And now you said that this is a high-end analog preamp with a streamer built into it.
Sure.
Okay, can you, so going back to the 272, I know you've just said that, but so was that mainly a digital preamp? Or, I mean, I know it was analog, but what, can you describe kind of the difference between the two?
It was mainly a digital preamplifier in that it had many digital inputs and 1 or 2 analog inputs, very unsophisticated, so no buffer control, etc. The streaming side of this analog preamplifier is very special. So it actually uses the MP800 system, which we use in things like the ND555, our very best streamer. And we also have 2 fixed clocks, one at 48 kilohertz and one at 44.1. This gives us a great advantage over any other streamer, and that the incoming signal is interrogated by this product. It looks to see what's coming in. So is it 44.1? Is it 192? Is it MP3? Is it something very basic? And it allows the clock to set up precisely to the incoming stream, which reduces jitter to rock bottom lows. It's never 100%, but it's the usual 99.9%. And that gives us better musical integrity.
Wow, that's impressive. That's quite impressive. All that in this one box.
Indeed.
Okay. And so now, if we're moving on, we have an external power supply. Naim love their external power supplies, have for years.
It's the backbone of our business.
So explain what's going on with this, unless you have more that you want to cover on this.
We can go back to this when we talk about the NAT 250, but let's look at what drives this product. The NPX 300 effectively replaces the XPS 2. And what this product does, if you imagine, if you could take a a mini car and take a 1.6 engine out and shoehorn in a V8 engine.
Right.
This is what this does to this product. But in actual fact, it goes one stage further.
Okay.
Because this has an internal power supply, it means that we remove 2 link plugs, which create the circuit.
Yep.
This means the internal supply is switched off, so this becomes completely quiet. This improves our dynamic range. So the less noise you amplify, the more signal you amplify,
Right.
therefore the music gets better. And this product, in a nutshell, allows you to do this.
Right.
It has the most DR regulators to any of our power supplies. It uses 8.
Wow. Okay.
7 in the 555 and 6 in the XPS2. So it's far more superior than the previous power supply, the XPS.
So one thing that a listener just listening could expect by getting the external power supply here and using it with this would be what I hate to use those cliche, but that inky black backdrop to the music.
Yeah.
So because it's all of a sudden this box is becoming extremely quiet.
Yeah, it's always been an interesting term because we use that term, but you know, how can we call sound black when it doesn't have a color?
Yeah.
But I know where you're coming from. I would like to say that what the power supply does, if you listen to the decay on a piano note, okay, without a power supply, it's like somebody's hit the pedal too soon and cut the note short, so it doesn't drift off into the background. Cymbals don't sound like cymbals. With a power supply, you can hear the circumference of it, so it shimmers off into the distance. And vocal and timing in the way that the lyric is actually laid down in the first place is far more authentic. And one of the obvious hi-fi things, because we do tend to design things with music in mind and the hi-fi things come later, is that you actually hear more integration. It sounds far more like a rehearsed track. And without a power supply, it's great. But when you add a power supply, it's like the group has done the track 10 times and all of a sudden they're doing it for the King of England and it has to be dead right. So the presentation is perfect.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, so it's bringing up all the nuances. It's bringing up that timbral. It's allowing that decay to happen, that natural decay of the instrument.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. So it's not just, oh, they couldn't design it good enough to add, because sometimes you hear that. Let's be honest. You hear that, well, why couldn't they just design a power supply good enough to where you don't need an external power supply? But what that allows you to do is really have that kind of, as you said, just overall better presentation, more realistic presentation.
I mean, physical size to the boxes, you know, you've got a much larger transformer. You've got 8 DR regulators around the circumference of the internal power supply board itself. And to actually fit this inside of this preamplifier is very difficult because the thing to remember with the NSC 222, the volume control is almost a carbon copy of what we use in Statement, our very best streaming preamplifier.
Right.
So rather than using a volume pot, we're switching between 10 fine and 10 coarse resistors. And when we actually lock onto the volume we want to listen to, we're on a fine resistor, and that gives you the very best sound quality. So no longer do you get the Blue Velvet Alps pot, which has been something we've loved listening to forever, but it isn't perfect. You drop to around about 7 o'clock and you may lose a channel or have a channel imbalance. That's the thing.
I've had that happen to me.
I do at home too until recently.
Yeah, nice. Nice. So that's great news for those especially who like to listen at lower volumes. You know, so that's you're gonna have that all the way through the entire ability of this to amplify it. That's awesome. So now do we want to go down to the 250?
The 250, I think, you know, I don't think we've saved the best till last. You know, a system should always start with the source first. But actually the 250 is, you know, probably one of the most famous, iconic names within our product range. It's called NAP 250 in that it shares the same name. So it's a bit like if you were to buy a Porsche from 1970, it was a 911, and if you bought one today, it's a 911, but it's about 3 times bigger. It's a much faster engine. It can handle corners and not kill you for a pastime. This is kind of similar. It's now 100 watts per channel, so we've finally broken that ceiling of hovering between 80 and 90 watts per channel. It's actually got a fan-assisted cooling system.
Right, yeah,
so,
I did notice that.
Yeah, a lot of people call it an intelligent heat sink. There's no such thing. It's a piece of metal that sits there. But what's intelligent is the fan actually regulating the heatsink. So as it gets warm, it can be reduced in its output and removing heat from the circuit board.
Right.
It's got a 7-speed fan. So at very low volumes, the fan's probably not going to kick in. It's more important to have that fan so that if it's in a cupboard, because actually you only need this one piece on show, the rest can be hidden away.
Yeah. I don't know why anybody would want to hide that away, but
no, well,
I mean, personally, I wouldn't, but I understand some people. People have restrictions, and you know, if you only need that one piece out, then that makes sense to put that fan in.
These get hidden away, and
of course.
Everything synchronizes. So should it be in that situation and you're playing Rage Against the Machine and it's, you know, really starting to rock the house, you might get the fan kick in. You know, and if it comes onto level 7, you're going to get a little bit of noise from the fan, but actually that's academic because the system's so loud you're not going to hear. You're not going to hear that
because we've listened to this when we first got it in. I got to say it didn't leave our main listening setup for weeks. Weeks, and I mean, we drove it. We played it with every type of speaker we had in here. It drove them all perfect. Of course, some of the most demanding speakers, it might, but even, I mean, name watts are so much different than most other majority of companies out there. But we never had an issue with it, and I will be 100% honest with you. I never heard the fan once. Never once did I hear it come on. I mean, it might have come on, but I never heard it and never was drawn to it. And I'm quite sensitive to fan noise. It's just one of those noises that it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. And I would have picked up on it. I would have been, oh, that's not right. Oh, why is that making a noise? And literally, I've never heard it come on. Not that it hasn't, again, but and that's driving 8 to 10 hours a day. You know, and driving sometimes at very loud volumes, mostly moderate listening, I'll be honest. But again, so it's the intelligent fan indeed, you know, and I think it's a great idea, especially since you broke that ceiling of 80, 90 watts. Now that you're into the 100 watts, again, Naim wattage is so much different, in my opinion, than your conventional amplifier out there. You know, could you explain a little bit of why that's so?
We use a system which is a fully regulated amplifier. So you have power in reserve to deal with those crescendos, those rock bands that really kick the kick drum.
Keeping that dynamic range alive.
And it doesn't go what we call in the hi-fi trade square wave. So it starts to distort and become quite unpalatable to listen to. And in actual fact, if you took a NAP 250 of old and took all the full regulation away from it, it's probably 150 watts per channel. But we ring fence 60 watts of that to sit back to deal with all those certain slew rates of an amplifier and dynamic swings that are required from it.
So you always got that headroom.
You've always got that in background.
And that's something that you can never knock Naim for. You always have that headroom, always. And it's always, you know, some amps will just fizzle out. And while Naim just continually moves, and you're just like, oh wow, here it comes. You know, so it's lovely. And in my opinion, like I said earlier, this is probably some of my favorite kit that Naim is. You know, in my opinion, of course, you know, it's just so. For me, it's just so listenable. It's just, and maybe it's to do with the preamp and what you're talking about, you know, the pure analog with the nice streamer or with the power supply, but whatever it is, this combination, these 3 boxes just really kind of rock my world, so to say.
I think the way we've achieved that listenability, if you will, where, you know, unfortunately, probably most of my recordings, my favorite albums aren't brilliant recordings. It's always the way. Of course, you have some. But, you know, you could maybe play some early Elvis Costello on this, for example, which would be great music, but not necessarily beautifully recorded like somebody like Patricia Barber, for example. But because we've reduced so many noise floors and we've removed a lot of distortion, certain notes and frequencies don't lack onto distortion, which makes you think, that doesn't sound right. That voice is too forceful. That drum doesn't sound correct. The cymbal's splashy, it doesn't sound like a cymbal. All of that seems to have disappeared now. But it still has the attacking grip that you want from music. The last thing we're ever going to do is stop it sounding like a real drum kit but we want you to hear it as authentically as you possibly can.
Definitely.
Whether it's a bass guitar, double bass, a piano, is it a piano, is it an electric piano? You should be able to hear those differences. And you can do that with this product range quite happily.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree fully.
The heatsink on this system, a lot of people think that when they turn the system up and it starts to distort and become, again, unpalatable and quite uncomfortable to listen to, they always blame the speaker. And the speaker always gets a hard time because that's where the sound comes from. So they instantly point the finger. But a lot of that noise is heat on the circuit board. And the quicker you can remove that, the more efficient the amplifier is and the less nasties you get coming through the loudspeaker. So again, the heat sinks, which are incredibly robust from the left-right heatsink fins, and the internal heatsink really does a great job at keeping it nice and cool.
Yeah, that's lovely. Great. Yeah, I mean, it's never got too warm. Like, you know, when we had it set up and driving as long as we did for as many hours as we did in a row, it was always very, you know, not cool to the touch. It's warm. Everything gets warm, but it wasn't like, oh my God, that's burning hot. It was doing the job as it should, keeping the heat away from those, you know, those
and
those
remember,
circuit boards.
if you drive something quite hard and it gets hot, that's good. It means the heat's on the outside, not sitting on the inside. So it's actually doing something with it, and it's sinking it away properly.
Perfect. And can we talk about a little bit about the connection?
Yeah,
you know, how this all kind of connects together.
Well, in actual fact, the new Naim range is probably the most flexible hi-fi system we've ever made.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
We've always lived in a world of DIN cables. We still believe in DIN connection. You've got common ground for both left-right channel, the right impedance for analog cables. But one of the things a lot of customers have asked us for, and it's certainly opened a market for us, is balanced connectivity. What we don't want to do is turn our backs on all of that single-ended quality that we really love and enjoy, because fully balanced will actually not be particularly nice to listen to. You might get a 5 dB lift in dynamic range, well, you can do that just by changing the volume, and you'll get the same effect.
Yeah, of course.
What you tend to do when it's fully balanced, and we use balanced impedance, by the way, which we'll go into later, you lose second and fourth order harmonics. And they're the color of music, because you've got those two opposing spikes, which actually do the noise cancellation, and it removes the beauty of music. You can do yourself a dem, try something else.
Is that what you're saying is when people say, oh, it's a bit sterile?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? It's got no feeling to it. So you're saying that's where you can...
And that's where so by doing impedance balancing, you have one spike, one opposing spike, and flip it at the power amp end. You get the qualities of noise cancellation, but you still keep second and fourth order harmonics. So you keep the big plus for that is that this new 250, which has balanced inputs, you can connect to a legacy system. So whether it's a 72 and a high cap, or whether it's a 552 preamplifier, this will connect. We've designed cables to connect them, and you can still integrate single and balanced. This product, if you have some active loudspeakers, you can connect them with active loudspeakers. Not a problem.
Which we have.
Perfect.
To great success. Good.
That's
good. It is an absolutely lovely sounding preamp.
So you get
the streamers, as you said, high
and that's
quality.
Great. If you've done that, you'll notice that you get that balanced connectivity, but you get that color of music retained. It's something a lot of balanced preamps don't do.
Jason, again, thank you very much. We're going to do some videos on the 300 series and also on the cabling and power supply. You can click here for those videos. Again, thank you guys for watching. This is Joe from Hi-Fi Corner, and remember, always enjoy your music.